Hello everyone, my name is Jerry. Welcome to my channel San Pedro Mastery. This video will tell you how to care for your San Pedro cactus seedlings. Not just the San Pedro in fact, but also the Peruvian Torch, Bolivian Torch, and any other cactus in the Trichocereus family, as well as Peyote and many other cacti. Here we are not talking about really young seedlings of just a few months of age. These should be left to grow a few more months in their tray. If you repot seedlings when they are still tiny, they are way more likely to die. You want to wait until they are at least 1 inch high or 2.5 centimeters before you repot. If you have bought your seedlings from an online shop, they will typically measure from 1 inch to 2 inches. As far as peyotes are concerned, you can repot them when they're about 8 mm wide. That's about 1/3 of an inch. But you don't necessarily have to repot the peyotes. You can leave them in their original germinating tray for a couple of years, as they grow really slow. Now, to take the plant out of the germinating tray, you first want to loosen up the roots using a knife, trying not to cut the roots, and then you gently lift the plant. You can then remove the excess of soil attached to the roots, but no need to clean them bare. If you've ordered it from the net, your plant will look something similar to this when you unpack it. It's better to buy seedlings that have been grown outside in the sun as opposed to indoors under fluorescent lights, because they will already be used to the sun. You can imagine it would be quite a shock for a plant that's only known fluorescent lights to suddenly be exposed to full sun, especially after traveling for a week or two inside a pitch black shipping box. Here you can see the color of this San Pedro is really nice. It's the right shade of green. Sometimes, when they are grown under lights, the color can be bright green. The sun tends to dull it out, give it a more natural look. But this one is a perfect green because the light from the sun has been filtered just the right amount. So, what kind of soil will you need to repot your seedlings? You can buy ready-made cactus soil or you can make your own. Buying ready-made cactus soil is obviously the easiest option and makes sense if you only have a few plants to repot. The downside of these soils is that they are usually fairly expensive and the quality can vary. This is why I personally recommend making your own soil. You will need 2 ingredients: regular potting soil, like the one you can find at supermarkets and garden centers, and perlite. So let's cover these 2 elements. First off, the potting soil. You can buy any potting soil you want. I personally use Composana, which you can get in various countries of Europe, but there are many other brands that are good. Look at the ingredients of the soil before you buy. Ideally, it should be made only of peat moss. If you find other ingredients, like for instance coconut coir in small proportions, then that will do. San Pedros are not very picky. But if you can find a soil that is only made of peat moss, then that is the best. A lot of soils have fertilizers added to them. A 1-year-old San Pedro should be able to handle a lightly fertilized soil and will even respond fairly well to it. So, potting soil is the first ingredient of our soil mix. The other ingredient is perlite, which is a small lightweight volcanic rock. You can find perlite in garden stores, cannabis supply stores, or online. In some countries, pumice, which is another volcanic rock, can be found more easily than perlite. You can replace perlite by pumice, they are very similar. Just make sure that you wash the pumice if it's not washed, as it's very dusty. The proportions should be 2 or 3 parts potting soil to 1 part perlite. So basically, anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of the mix will be perlite. I usually don't measure the proportion and just eyeball it. If you want an extra growth booster, you can add earthworm castings to the mix. Your plants will grow noticeably faster with the castings. My recipe with earthworm castings is 25% earthworm castings, 50% potting soil, and 25% perlite. This is the mix I currently use on all my San Pedros and they grow really fast with it. Some people have asked me if vermiculite would be a good substitute for perlite. It is not. Vermiculite retains too much water for cacti. For those of you with a garden, you can also pick up some soil from it if it's not clay-like. I do recommend adding perlite though, to let the roots breathe better. A large root system in a soil that is not too compacted means the San Pedro will grow faster. As far as the pot is concerned, you can use any size you want, any shape you want, either round or square. I like square ones as they are space savers. And any material, plastic, which is light and cheap, or clay. Whatever pot you pick, make sure it has drainage holes. Size-wise, I think that for a small seedling like this one, which is about 1 inch tall, a pot this size is perfect. It's 2.5 by 2.5 in inches or 6 by 6 in centimeters. And by the way, I don't recommend placing the seedling too low into the pot like this one. It was a gift and I did not put it myself. I prefer to have the soil level higher up so that there is good air circulation around the plant, which helps to prevent bugs. It will also mean more soil available for the roots, which is always a good thing. If it's a bigger seedling, like this Bridgetsy, then you can place it in a pot like this one, which is 3 by 3 in inches, or 8 by 8 in centimeters. You can leave it in there for quite some time until it has reached a size like this one. Although quite frankly, it's high time this one gets repotted in a larger pot. Like this one, which is 4 by 4 in inches or 10 by 10 in centimeters. This Pacanoy would have probably grown faster if it had been repotted in a 4 by 4 earlier on. Now, if space is an issue, it is fine to crowd a few plants inside one pot. As an example, these plants are grown in a 3 by 3 pot. Likewise, you could also place 4 of these tiny seedlings into a single 3 by 3 pot like this one, and they would grow just as fine. So now you've repotted your seedlings. Do you water them right away? You can if they are looking severely dehydrated, but otherwise it's better to wait for a few days, like 3 to 5 days, just in case the roots get damaged during repotting and they need a bit of time to heal themselves. If you have ordered the cacti online, it's best not to expose them to a hard sun right away. They have been in complete darkness inside a box for a week or two. So place them first in a shady spot for a few days, with lots of light but no direct sun. Then a few days later, move them to a half sunny spot, before moving them to full sun. And they may not like sun all day, just a few hours of sun are enough. Another option is to give them sun all day, but filter the sun with some green shading net, like you can buy at garden stores. You will need to experiment with that, as some nets will let in more light than others, and also the sun itself is stronger in some parts of the world than others. As far as watering is concerned, my plants are only given rainwater, which I collect from my roof, and is the best water for them. If you plan to give them tap water, then I suggest leaving it to rest in the sun for a few hours so that the chloride evaporates away. If you can't do that, then just give them straight water from the tap. After all, seedlings over an inch tall will be more resistant to chloride than really tiny cacti that were born recently. But I do recommend letting the chloride evaporate first. If you really want to baby them to the extreme, you could give them the same bottled water that you drink yourself. That would be just as good as rainwater, but that would be very expensive, especially if you have several pots. Whichever water you use, make sure it's not too cold so that you don't shock the plant. In the summer, you can water the cacti generously as soon as the soil is completely dry. Watch out, it may be dry on the surface of the soil, but not fully dry at the bottom of the pot. If you're not sure, it's better to water less often than too often. The roots like to alternate dry and wet, and they don't like wet for too long. If I recommend to water every time the soil is dry, that is only for maximum growth. If you don't water for a week or two, a 1-year-old plant should be fine, as long as it's not in full sun. They don't need constant watering like the tiny recently born seedlings. And the older the San Pedro gets, the longer it can survive without water. In the winter, cacti really hate to have their roots wet for too long. The cold and wet combination on their roots, if it lasts for more than 2 weeks, can kill a cactus. If grown outdoors, it's best not to water the plants at all in the winter, or just once or twice lightly if they start looking thirsty. They will shrink. If grown indoors in a heated room, for instance behind a sunny window in your living room, then you can give them water a little more often if they look thirsty. Basically, in the winter, don't give them water unless they ask for it. And then only do light waterings, no drenching. Of course, if grown outside, then be careful of freezing temperatures. Check the weather forecast for the lowest temperatures at night, and if it's likely to freeze, then bring the plants outside. Note that your cacti may change color with the cold. It's normal. Typical winter colors for the San Pedro are red, yellow, and brown, but they will go back to green in spring. However, keep in mind that red and yellow can also mean too much sun during the summer. And that brown could also mean that the plant is rotting. But that is really easy to diagnose, as the flesh will be extremely soft to the touch. Some of the cacti you mail order may be flexible around the base by the time you receive them. Give them some time after being replanted. They will eventually recover firmness. If need be, help them stand up with wooden skewers. Lastly, if ever you have rot on one of your cacti, a brown area that is very soft to the touch, usually starting from the base, then don't throw the cactus away. You might still be able to save it by cutting off the bad part, then leaving the plant to heal for a week or two outside of the sun, and finally make it reroot by simply placing it on top of the soil. That's it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was one of my first videos from 2018, and it is one that got a lot of views. But after watching it again, I felt like updating the info on 2 points: the soil recipes and the pot sizes. Therefore, I re-recorded these 2 parts so that you have more accurate information to grow your San Pedro seedlings. Now, if you would like to buy seedlings, maybe I can help. I usually have some for sale. Those are grown from my own unpollinated seeds. If you're interested, please send me an email and I will reply with prices and photos. My email appears in the description of this video, but I will also make it appear now on the screen. Just send me a quick email saying, please send me your list of seeds and seedlings, and I will do that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you very soon with more videos on how to grow the San Pedro cactus and its relatives. Bye for now.